Ladies and gentlemen, the Adult Baby Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Adult Babies Podcast, episode 120. I am B.
I'm Chic.
And I'm Chris.
Welcome everybody. We got a very special guest today. He's a dear friend and ex-coworker of mine. Host of the whole podcast, Mr. Rob Sprance, everybody.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here after a fucking year for you to actually invite me on. Very special.
I want to get into that.
Yeah, I'm so very special that it took you like 58 episodes to
He's
ask
one of
me
our
to do
favorite
it.
people in the world.
Yeah.
You invited us on your podcast. I believe you'd had us on your podcast just to complain to us that we didn't have you on.
No, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. That was just an extra perk that I wound up with. It's just a little extra bonus. And I like this guy Chris that you have on because he reminds me of me because he's clearly the only one with fucking brains running the operation. Because he's got everything wired up. He's sending invitations. He's got the microphone. He's all set. It reminds me so much of my life being the one person to organize a bunch of fucking cretins that can't like press a button. So I feel for you, Chris.
Thanks, man.
Me and you, brother.
You and me, man.
So anybody who doesn't know, me and B, yes, we were guests on Rob's podcast, The Whole, which is on Riotcast Networks. Very good show. And he brought us on. And, you know, I never thought he'd come to like my parents' house and B's parents' house. So I didn't invite him, and it was the wrong thing to do. And he gave us shit about it the second time he had us on.
No, second time I invited you before you invited me, right?
Mm-hmm. I do want to say one thing. My audio would have been fine for your podcast, but I had to download something within 5 minutes.
What did you have to download? Google Chrome?
Google Chrome, and then my computer wasn't updated. If I had known 5 hours earlier, I would have been on my game.
You don't already have Google Chrome?
Well, you know, Safari.
Okay, so Google Chrome or Firefox are the only two. But you know what? Okay, that gives you a pass for the first 5 minutes. Then what happened the other 28?
So I downloaded. I'll tell you what happened. I downloaded it. I downloaded Google Chrome, and you can go back to the whole. I don't know what episode number. It was probably a couple episodes ago.
Was it?
You can go back on the whole and watch this, because I was going through it, and I downloaded the Chrome, and then my computer had to update after that. So I couldn't do it.
You embarrassed us so much.
Huh?
It was you know what? It couldn't have gone any better. Like just. Everything just completely failing was exactly what I had hoped for, and it worked out great. And then you took the phone like outside, and you were just sitting out in the patio. It was like this really, really sad thing, and I loved it because just watching you and like it was like this the whole time.
Exactly.
It was moving. It sounded like he was hitting the mic the whole time. That was what got me. That I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Yeah, and you know what it was? I was trying to figure out what the sound was because you know when I muted his and you heard it, and I bet you it was just his leg was just fucking nervously tapping and tapping and tapping.
I do take my leg.
That's what I think it was. Yeah, that's what I think it was. And you know what the best part is? Because you didn't charge your phone or, you know, you didn't bother to go to a place where you plug it in a wall. So as soon as you left, I know you're a comic, Bobby Kelly came on and joined us for the rest of the episode.
I was replaced by Bobby Kelly. So, you know what? It worked out better for you guys.
Replaced? Replaced, though?
Yeah.
Bobby Kelly's funny. I had nothing to say to him too because I didn't, I don't know him. Like B would have maybe had more questions for him, but I was just
Did you tell him?
Nice to meet you, Bobby.
Did you tell him that you based your entire look off of him? You guys look very similar.
Oh, me and Bobby Kelly?
Yeah.
Was every bald, chubby guy look the same?
Yeah, but you got the dark hair.
Yes. You know what? I keep like Chris keeps popping up my screen. He looks like the sound guy on a Wes Anderson movie. Like he's just sitting on the side, getting ready to
observing.
He's he's the glue that keeps us together.
He is the glue.
Yeah, he's the brains. The brains.
Could you imagine these two trying to figure out a microphone?
No, I saw it. I saw it, Chris. That was my show. My show was like these two trying to figure out a microphone. And you know what? We go live at 10 o'clock on my show, and I have everybody in at 9:30. And beforehand, I thought, you know what? For these two, maybe I should start at 7:30 so we have 2 hours to work out the kinks. But instead, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and then they came on, and this is what you got.
Yep.
I would have been on point if I had known
didn't ask
2 hours in advance.
Yeah, and Chick, how many episodes? This is what 100? How many? 20?
120.
Yeah, so we have 61 episodes since you and I think you said it was 61.
Right. Well, yeah. Also, in 119 episodes for you to figure out how to get your iPad the right way, Chick, so you're not in the corner of the fucking screen.
Like over here or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's like your eyes are creeping out of the corner. Like this is 101. When you're in video, did you ever think, maybe I should find something relatively flattering for my angle?
Did you ever see any of us when I was in my car doing the show? How bad the lighting was?
Yes, I did. I did see. I was kind of hoping. Yeah, it was like you just got right out of the halfway house and started a podcast.
Exactly.
Well, it looked like.
It would get dark, so like the first half of the podcast you could see him, and then the sun would go down and he'd slowly disappear until you could see the light from his smoke blunt. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Blunt. I don't know what that.
And then the best was he would try to turn on like the car light behind him.
Right, yeah, and you know what? I hit it by accident. I thought I turned on Into the Wild. It looked like somebody in that fucking bus trying to keep himself alive and not freeze to death.
Oh, that's great. But I do want to tell. I want to get to because you told me your whole history when we were working together about your hole and how you started doing
my hole. Yeah.
Tell us
about your hole.
The Glory Hole podcast, and I would think that's a pretty interesting story and whatnot. I wouldn't, if you don't mind giving us a little.
No, so it's about 9 years ago now. At the time that I was doing the Howard Stern Roundtable. I did it like 20-something times.
I was a big fan of that, by the way.
Yeah, it was okay. Like we would go up. It was, and I'll tell you why. Because like, what would happen is it was like the biggest rush for me. Like I would go up there, and you get, usually you get some castaways from the show itself come on and things like that. But it was to talk about the events of the week. And anytime I started drifting to something else and started having fun with it, you don't realize you just kind of get caught up in it. And then, they rein you back in to talk about the show. And I was like, it'd be so cool to just be able to do this. Like, I can see why people love it. So I looked into podcasting, which at the time was considered a fucking joke. It was like, people thought it was like a guy in a ham radio in his basement, Now it's a guy in a blue microphone in his basement. But, it's like, that's the only thing that's But,
same basement.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I, so I decided to start a podcast. I was a big fan of Kevin Smith's podcast at the time, Smodcast. I listened to it every week. It was just him and one other person, Scott Mosier, as producer, and they would do the show. And I was like, I want to do this. Like, I think I could do this. And there was a kid at my job named Franco who I would just we would riff all day long without microphones. It's the same story everybody has. Oh, we're funny. Why don't we just put microphones in front of us? Yeah. That's I had him come on, and Chris Fortney happened to work there. Last minute, I invited him and this guy, Big Mike, that worked with us, and I would wait, and as soon as the place closed, the office closed where people were out, I would set up the microphones and everything really quick, turn my office into a studio, and we do the show. But what happened was we came up with the name The Glory Hole. And the image of the cover used to be, it's different now, but the cover used to be a bathroom wall with a hole and a microphone coming through it, right, instead of a dick. And that was what we used. And I guess that was enough to get people to check it out, and I guess the show was at least good enough to get more people to come back. And before I knew it, it started doing really well. And then we brought the accountant on at my job, who we call Mr. PeePee.
My favorite.
He was an older man, and he's very eloquent in the way he talks, but he's a sexual degenerate. He really is. And the guy would go to massage parlors and do all of this shit. So he always was obsessed with Starbucks, and every day he'd come back with a cup of Starbucks. I said, man, you love that place. I'm like, do you jerk off in the bathroom when you're there? Just as a joke. And he goes, you know what? I would. I love it so much. I thought about it. I said, you know what? I said, why don't you do that? So there was a thing. It's dead now. I think it's called Foursquare. It used to be. Now on Facebook people check in, on Twitter people check in, but Foursquare used to be just a site where people just checked in. So the bit was he would go to Starbucks, he would masturbate, and then he would log into the Foursquare, just masturbated here, fantastic service, A+ clean bathroom, extra tissues, right? So, we thought it was funny. We just, we did it a couple of times. And the first time he came back, he threw the fucking napkin, on my desk. He's like, I did it. I'm like, dude, you could have just said you did it. You didn't have to actually do it. Right. So, but he did it. So what wound up happening was, we did another 15, 20 episodes. That was long in the past. And all of a sudden, it made the Huffington Post. And then it was in the Wall Street Journal. And then it was in all of these.
Showed me.
Yes, and it was it was man calling himself Mr. PeePee is masturbating in different Starbucks. Now, normally you would hear this and you'd be like, this is fucking great. This is publicity. We freaked out. We're like, this is not good. This is not good. But that the listenership shot up after that. He started doing. At first he was shy, then he started accepting radio interviews from places in Columbus, Ohio, and shit. Yeah, and they're and the guy's like, hey, Mr. PeePee, and he's like, yeah, how about you? You don't talk. So that actually is what put us on the map. Sadly, a man masturbating at Starbucks is the reason why.
It's one of my favorite stories you ever told.
I can't believe I shook this man's hand. Do you know what?
That's right.
I didn't know the story. I knew it afterwards, but I walked into that podcast studio and you're like, oh, that's Mr. PeePee. I'm like, oh, weird name, but I shook his hand, and then you guys proceed to tell me all of his. He's the Christopher Columbus of masturbating or something.
Yeah, but he doesn't walk. I guarantee that you masturbated the same amount of times that he did before you showed up at the studio. So
maybe, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah,
There's something different about that. It was in a Starbucks.
Yeah, so instead of being blood brothers, you're cum brothers. What's the difference?
Oh, all right.
That's the same shit.
He, Mr. PeePee, where did that name come from? Because you say you worked with him.
I just said he does not want his identity known. He never did. He still doesn't. When we do cameras with him, he wears a gimp mask, or he wears
Does he really? I didn't.
Yeah, he has all different kinds of masks. Well, the one that you were on, he was off camera on purpose. That's what I was going to say. Because you weren't on camera. Because it was summer, and the guy would be sitting there fucking sweating in a mask. I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
But he had all different kinds of masks. He had an M&M mask. He had all these different ones. But
I didn't know that. That's excellent.
Yeah, we did that for a while too. It was a complete ripoff of Howard Stern when Baba Booey used to wear the beekeeper's mask and stuff.
Yeah.
So we just tried to come up with whatever type of mask you can get. So yeah, he by the time we had to figure out he was coming on, we said, what's his name gonna be? And we were just spitting stuff out, and I just said, how about Mr. PeePee? And he's like, ha ha ha! He started laughing. So I was like, all right, we'll stick with that. You're Mr. PeePee. Done. Yeah, you're done. And then he had another friend that worked. They were inseparable, and we called him Mr. Cocky whenever he came on. He had a very I think he was Guatemalan, that he used to talk like this and then. So it was Mr. PeePee and Mr. Cocky. That was the two. Man, very highbrow stuff.
Was that the guy who helped him use the
flashlight? Yeah.
Yeah, the flashlight.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He fucked the flashlight in our studio, and with his best friend holding it. So, we love the fact that we had the idea, and a lot of times, and you guys know this too, if you talk about a bit, the planning of the bit is sometimes way better than the bit will ever be.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So we did, a whole episode of us discussing how is this going to go down. How's he going to get his own site to come in? When he did, we used golf voices, golf announcers. We're like, okay, now he's fucking.
I listened to that episode. And it is amazing.
Oh, I gotta hear this.
So he, the bit was funny. We're in a great mood and everything. And it was about 15 minutes to go. I'm like, so you ready? He said, yeah. He said, all right, I'm going to get myself ready. He goes in the next room. We're laughing. We all put on ponchos so we don't get hit by any sprayed cum. And he comes back in, fucking the thing, and his friend holds it, and my just complete mindset just changed in a second. I'm like, I can't believe I'm watching a fucking 60-year-old man fuck a piece of plastic in front of me right now. I was just like, I can't believe, what the fuck am I doing with my life? What the fuck am I doing? And I even say, you hear me say that, like when we're doing the golf voices in the episode, like all of a sudden I just go, I can't believe like I'm watching a man fuck a piece of plastic right now. And he fucking came and he was like, ah, and he came.
He didn't sound like his, oh God.
Oh yeah, dude. And he did. Look, there's video of that episode, which I'll probably never release. We did for a little bit, and they zoomed in on just like his pelvis. We did it tastefully. The microphone, the pop filters and the microphone was right in front of him. So that's what we wound up doing.
Oh man.
Oh, that's amazing.
Mm.
Well,
yeah.
the other thing is we've talked a lot about my jobs too in this.
Your lack of.
My lack of. And everything's usually one-sided. And after hearing you hear your side of how I got fired the last time, I think it was hysterical. Because, we have a different view of it to an extent, but it's relatively.
No, not to an extent. We have a very different view of it. Your view is the. Yeah, and again, I'm looking at the frame, dude. Like, I see just your head in the very bottom of the frame. Buy a fucking iPad stand for $8.
I have a stand. That's what I'm doing. It's just if I do this, it's just too straight. Maybe I should do it like this.
Yeah, that looks really good. It looks like you look like a retired luge player taking a picture for one last photo for a car dealership.
Before he gets stuck in the luge.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like a car dealership paid him $300, and he's all fat and trying to put on the fucking luge one last time.
Squeaks through a luge.
Still fits.
But no, because the beautiful thing was Rob was sitting right in front of me. So everything that happened to me, he was always there to hear. And he heard the other side from my boss because, he got along. He knew him longer and, better than me. And when I heard him explain how when I was late that one day and then I didn't get right back on the phone, that's where I think we had the
Chris, Chick, can you give us a quick synopsis of what you thought you got fired for?
Yeah, because some of the listeners may not know.
I sucked and I was late.
Well, we know that.
No,
I never disputed why. I'm just like the final days. There was a couple listen. I didn't put the effort that I should have in that place.
Did you
I'd be the first to admit it. I was good when I was on the phone.
At the end?
No, I just I didn't like it, like making phone calls all day. It's not, I love the people. I actually like the company. I just didn't like my task. But that being said, I didn't do anything to really better my situation. I had some issues, and I was late.
But you when you're late, like you're not like normal people late. You're catastrophically late. Like you're like start at 9, you're 12:45. Like that's not even late. There's not even a word for what that is. You're just not.
The best is he'll show up 12:45 and be like, "Yeah, I was stuck at the light."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what it's like? It felt like waiting for him to come in, what it must be like to go see an Axl Rose show, knowing that whatever time he's going to show up, he shows up. So
Rob, we used to do the podcast at his house, and he'd be late to come outside.
Right, I believe that. I fully believe that. I feel, and as I'm looking to the side while I'm talking because. There was one time I came outside and he was sleeping in the car and I took a picture, but I never brought it up because
It was on it was my break. I slept in the car on my
break. It was like 4:40. Don't give me that shit. You're so full of shit. It was your break. It was my break. Dude, I like that. It wasn't the only time. He would just be in there and I he'd see in the other window. Not this time when he was sleeping. But usually he'd just see it like.
Yeah.
Like, just give me a wave, Like, yeah, I'm here. Dude, I don't know what he was doing in there. It was bad.
It was,
like
it was a rough time for me.
It was only a matter of time before we saw the sleep apnea machine too. It was
You
all.
brought it to work?
I still
no.
use it every day now. I love it.
Yeah, but I'm never.
It's changed his life around.
I'm not going to be able to find this easily while I'm doing the show. So afterwards,
all right.
if I find it,
If you don't find it, you send it, and we'll
send
post
it, and we'll throw it on the Instagram.
Or you can just wait till he gets another job and wait outside in the parking lot, and you'll be able to get another photo.
Get another candid photo of it.
No, I look, you, dude. You can put it on anybody you want, but you were given so many warnings and chances. And it had nothing to do with me. Like I was just there, but as someone who's a friend of yours, like it was tough to watch that shit unravel, man, because it would be like, you know, don't come late again, and then the next day he was there like fucking 5 a.m. Like, you will call me, hey, what's up? But a day later, man, he would drift right back. It would slowly start to drift. It'd be 9, 9:30, 9:50 the next day. Then where is Chic? Then 9, you know, like 10:45. Correct me at any point if I'm wrong.
No, listen, I'm not.
No, totally right.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
It was
like
it was. You know what it was, and this is my one. It's a big personal issue that I do when I check out of someone. I'm unhappy with somewhere after whatever. Instead of just putting my head down, doing what I have to do, and finding something better, I check out, and that's not right. I'm not defending it, but that's what happens.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I don't think you were unhappy in the beginning.
I wasn't in the beginning.
But like I think it was a spiral. I think you started coming in late and getting shit. We're like, I don't want to get shit at my job. And you know, it's an easy fix. You just fucking wake up and you show up. Like that's like literally you had 2 criteria: make phone calls and show up. And you were at a 50% hit rate. Like you
Can I say something that just makes me crazy about him not showing up? You don't do anything. Like, how do you not wake? Like, I've had nights where I'm doing comedy.
This is where the sleep thing that everybody makes fun of. It's a legit thing. I'm not saying it's the answer and the reason why everything, but I do have issues sleeping.
Okay, but I've gone out. I've done late shows. I get home 2, 3 in the morning.
But you sleep better. I don't sleep. I wake up constantly when I'm sleeping.
I've gone out. I've been drunk. I come home.
I get it. Listen, I'm not justifying it. I'm wrong.
I'm still up. You don't leave the house except for darts once in a while. But I can't imagine that.
Well, what about when he has to do the training for darts? Because I used to bust his balls about him. Like, how do you train? Do you like drink raw eggs in the morning and stuff?
Yeah.
Do you like? It's like all you think about is darts. Like you're eating a sandwich and you take the toothpick out and you just start
and you just sitting there trying to throw everything, keep that motion down.
And I think
one of the hardest things with COVID is darts has been done.
And
darts has been done.
You know how?
And that's the only way COVID has affected him, by the way.
Right, right, exactly.
I can't go to darts.
You know how I found out about that? Do you remember, Chic?
No, I don't actually.
Because you were late a bunch, and we were talking about you being late, and I'm like, this guy's a mess, because I was just bust his balls all the time, because that's just me. And I was like, this guy's a mess. He's one step away from being in a fucking dart league.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what? I am in a dart league. It was my casual.
You know what? I actually am in a dart league.
I am in a dart league, and I was like, oh really? So then we went down dart league lane.
That was the best thing that happened to me at that job, was meeting Joe. That's what always happens. At every job, I always meet somebody that I get along with well, and I make a friend out of it. So when maybe the jobs don't last, but I get
along. So you don't collect paychecks, you collect friends.
Right.
I collect friends.
So you must have like 30 friends just based off jobs that you lost.
I got a lot of good friends, man.
That should be part of your resume. You know, shows up when he wants, but man, he'll make some friends.
He makes a lot.
Makes a lot of fucking friends.
Because he's such a good guy. That's why we love him. He's a great guy, and he's a great person to talk to at work. But you wouldn't want for him to work for you.
Chick, you know what you need?
It would be a disaster. But he's a great guy to have in the office, to just be like turn around and tell you stories all day.
That's who you need a job at like a startup. Like
Mhm.
like you just kind of hang out in the office, you roll all the joints,
Yeah.
and you just talk. Like you're
He's like a
That's
hype man.
that's my
you
job.
roll in sometimes. As
Yeah,
long as
and
there's
if-
never less than 10 joints, you're good.
He's a
And-
hype man in
and,
the office.
And if you ever find that job, just please give me the stock information so I can know not to buy any of it.
No, stop.
He starts sharing his ideas.
Yeah, I'm thinking we go. I don't know. What? Remember when Costanza did that whole thing with the? I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
That's a
You know
good
what my
job.
thing is?
Good, B. You're on point
That's
today,
my
B.
thing. That's one of the worst for me is that I got that whole reputation of just being this lazy, shitty worker, and I have no one to blame but myself.
Mhm.
And I gotta get that. I gotta scratch
You can't
that.
blame
I gotta-
anybody
else.
I gotta change this. I
You
gotta
know
fix
what?
this somehow.
There comes a point where it goes from reputation to reality, and that's you're. It's not
Well,
a
I just
reputation.
said I gotta change it. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's my own
Mhm.
fault.
But
Get
you
a
know,
cl-
you've said that plenty of times. You have to change it. Yeah.
Hey,
We'll see
at
what
least I'm
happens.
somewhat aware of it.
How many dart games were you late for?
I show up when my game is about to start. I'm usually in the parking lot getting high until my game comes on.
How
And then
many
I walk.
were? So you were never late for ever for a dart game.
Not really.
That's a
Right.
great. That's a
How
great.
much-
Yeah.
Yeah, how much money could you make in a night playing darts in the league?
If we're betting, I mean, you could make a couple hundred, but not really. Usually zero.
Right.
I get what you're saying.
Right, and if you show up at the job, right, So it looks to me like you either got to change your ways or you got to get a job at a dartboard company. Those are the only two options I see in your
That's
life.
a bad idea.
That's not a bad
That
idea at
isn't a
all.
bad
You know?
idea. Can I tell you?
yeah.
I've been turning down like Uber Eats jobs, and like everybody's been telling me do that, and I'm finally.
Wait, you're
Gonna
turning
throw
them
in the
down
towel.
like Uber
Yeah,
Eats
they
reached
looking
out
for
to
you?
Like,
No, but everyone's like, you should do it. You should do it. And I'm like, oh,
Chick orders Uber Eats, and the delivery driver comes up. He's like, you'd be great at this job.
It'd be great, just looking at you.
Turning them down. Who turns?
Turned it down. The
You know
best,
what?
Rob, did you hear this story? He went on an Amazon interview in a tuxedo.
That
Yeah,
was probably the one thing where I went into that, and I'm like, wow, I actually think I'm overqualified for a job for the first time in my life.
Wait, so you wore not a suit, a tuxedo?
No, he's
No,
joking.
he
I
wore a suit to an
and I was the
Amazon
only
interview,
person
though.
in there.
He went very, very well dressed.
I went too well dressed, and everybody else was wearing like jeans and cut shirts and shit. It was
Ma,
ridiculous.
where's my communion suit? I got a big interview. The cummerbund. Where's the cummerbund? I can't find it.
Cummerbund doesn't fit me no more, Mom.
Ah. No, I don't need the sash, Ma. I don't need the sash. It's not communion again. It's a job interview.
That's amazing.
I love
Well,
that you
I-
went there and everybody else was wearing what you wear every day. Like everybody else was wearing sweatpants and cutoffs, and you're there with the suit.
And I
Totally
lost.
changed
it. Yeah, right.
I didn't get the job because I had too many points on my license.
Yeah.
Oh,
Great.
God.
Yeah, and they would right now they would hire fucking anybody, dude.
Yeah.
Anybody. So let's take a bet on this before Chick. Don't answer this, but how many of us think that he said at one point in the interview, "I love Amazon. I order everything off." What do you think? I say, damn right he did.
I
100%.
agree. I think
All
that's
right.
something he would say. Yeah.
You
Did
know,
you
I'm
check?
I'm a company guy.
Did you
Give
say
me
it,
the
Chick?
opportunity, I would have said it, but it was more like fill out this paperwork. You have the job. There was no questions or anything.
Wow,
Given
and
the
then
chance, I
Oh,
would have.
man.
and you still wow.
And I
And you
still
didn't get it.
So wait, was it you just by yourself, or was it like 30 people in the room?
Me and one other guy. They did a duel, 2 people at a time.
And the guy leaned over to him and goes, "How many points you got on your license?"
Oh my God. That other guy probably saw you in the suit. He's like, I'm not getting the job. This guy comes in a suit. He knows what he's doing.
People, looks are deceiving.
Yeah. Oh, look,
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know what? Guess what? You lost the right to catch coronavirus at one of their warehouses now.
Yeah,
That's
no,
true.
I know.
You know?
You did.
You lost out.
So I'm thinking once my unemployment's up, I'm going to take on Uber Eats. So
When
make
is
sure
it
you
up?
order Uber Eats.
I order Uber Eats all the time, and
I
if you
can't wait
start
to
showing up
deliver
at
to
my
you.
front door, I'm not ordering it anymore.
I'm
But
gonna start
doesn't-
going into your bag and eating some of your food.
I know.
I was gonna
already
say, like-
think people do that.
But don't the drivers have to do both? Don't you have to be Uber and do the food, or you
could
could just
choose
do the
to-
food?
You could choose either one.
Yeah, you could do either or. My buddy does just Uber Eats, and he's the one who was telling me about it. And I was like, oh, this doesn't sound too bad.
How much does he make? How much can he possibly make?
He told me one of his better weeks was like $700-800, but he said normally it depends on how much you want to do. But he said you could make like $200-300. Like it's not going to be like crazy.
If 500 of those dollars was delivering to Chic.
Yeah, right. That's gotta be. You have to put in a lot of work, like. To make
Well, he
that
said
much
it was
money.
like 30 deliveries or something like that.
Uber Eats is going to let you go because they can't afford to have you off the food market. the fucking numbers are going to plummet without you ordering.
They're like, oh,
Wow.
this isn't
Ah.
working.
Well, that's your third Dunkin' run, huh? All right. Good night.
I'm going to only go to the places that I like at so I can start eating for free. Like, oh, they must have fucked up your order.
He's already got the angle. Here it comes.
Yeah, he's already figuring out ways how to lose this job.
Oh, that's my ass.
Oh,
But
wait,
how's everything-
I got a notification now. Tom C. is running 45 minutes late with your order.
Be the latest.
Oh
I'll
my
be the
God.
best
That
Uber
is
Eats
the
driver
day I
ever.
stop ordering Uber Eats.
Yeah, right. But Rob, you're also a big musician. Well,
I know. I'm not a big musician.
You know what
I'm
I
a
mean.
musician.
You're a musician, but you're into it. You got it. What's your? You're just a guitar player. Or you play other instruments.
No, everything. I play a little guitar, a little bass, a little drums, keyboard, everything. But I'm not. If I'm the best out of all of them, is probably guitar. I guess the other ones I can pass. I can pick up. Like if you can play guitar, you can play a bass. It's just less strings and they're fatter. But keyboard I'm not that great at. I can come up with something, but I'm not like one of those dudes that can hear music and stuff wailing away.
And just play it.
Yeah. But mostly
Is
guitar.
that something you were into forever though, or is that?
Yeah, I was in a band like in the '90s, and we used to play like CBGBs, and we toured.
What was the name of this band?
Oh, that's cool.
What?
What was the name of the band?
So we were like fucking Mouse Rat from Parks and Recreation. We changed the name like 3 times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we were originally called Crayon, and then we found out there was another Crayon. So
How could it be 2 crayons?
there was, and then we wound up. We called ourselves Blue. That was the name, and then there was
Blue?
another. Yep, Blue,
You just
BLUE.
told
But
yourself the color of a
So
crayon?
you guys really liked colors.
we did.
What was your
We
next
did.
band? Magic Marker?
Yeah, Magic Marker. We did. Sharpie was a good one. Sharpie was like a side project I did. Then which one I loved? Craypos. That was my favorite.
Oh,
one.
that's a good one.
Yeah, because it kind of smears like
I grew up listening to Number 2 Pencil. They were pretty good.
they were a good band, but Graphite was way better. I saw them both together. Yeah. Graphite blew them out of the fucking water.
Oh,
Now, what type of music was it like? Was it like '90s grunge, or was it?
No, it was like so we had 2 records. Like early on, it was heavy, like I wouldn't say like Nirvana-ish, but it was heavy like Lemonheads and that type of those type of band. And then later we did a record that was very mellow throughout the whole thing. But it's cool. Like it's been a very long time since I did anything, but I'm working on a record now here at home with just doing all the instruments myself. I have a couple of guest players, but it's going to be, I haven't done much in a while since this, but I'm going to get diving back in. I built a studio that's here. I didn't know.
Yeah, the studio sounds great.
I didn't know I was going to wind up using it for my podcast and as my office too. So it actually turned out pretty cool.
Was it easy to do it out of there because you had all the audio and everything set up? Like, is it easy to turn to it, or?
It's the part that I'm having a hard time with, and it's getting better every week, is the difference between being in the studio and have everybody right there and now doing it on the screen. But it is way better. I'm much more comfortable with it now than I was when we first started. It was just very weird. But now I'm comfortable enough where I started inviting guests again. We have some guests coming on. We have a guy coming on this Thursday that worked for Donald Trump and Ivanka for like 8 years of The Apprentice.
Oh,
And
Oh, get out of here.
yep, and he's breaking the NDA he has with Mark Burnett.
Oh, really?
And he's going to tell us everything, such as Trump snorting Adderall, Trump wearing adult diapers and being incontinent and shitting himself from time to
He's
time.
an adult baby?
What?
Yep, he is an adult
He's
baby.
an adult baby.
We should try and get him on the show.
Trump?
Mm.
No, Fitz.
Yeah, we can get him.
Yeah.
I think we could get him.
So I'm excited to interview this guy. He just did a interview with People Magazine, and I was reading this. I'm like, I gotta know more than this. This is not enough.
Matt, is that how you found out about him, like through that?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So I reached out to him, and thankfully he's also a comic in the city, so he knows the cellar and everything. So he's gonna come on. His name is Noel Castler. So I'm looking forward to that. I really want to hear some dirt.
And
Sure.
that's
Yeah, that
next
sounds
week,
really
or when's this?
It'll be this week. It'll be up before this week is out. So
Oh, sweet. Okay, awesome. I look
Yeah.
forward to that.
Yeah, I want to see
yeah.
that.
But you guys,
We're gonna-
you do get some good guests. Now, you guys normally do it. And how long are you above the Comedy Cellar now? That you would do.
It has to be about 3 years, maybe 4. Actually, maybe closer to 4. Yeah, it's been a
Now, do
while.
you think that's coming back anytime soon?
I don't know. I don't think I'm going back there anytime soon. It's just, I don't think it's going to be that easy to get guests to come into other studios right now.
Yeah.
Like
Especially
I'm
going
not
to the city.
right. I'm not to Today's Show, but I've had some good guests, man. I had Sean Avery on. I had Sal Vulcano from Impractical Jokers. I had, I've had some. I had Brendan Ryan was on, a popular comedian from Long Island. But I don't think that's going to happen. But now I'm going to test the waters and see what the difference is, because maybe now I can get better guests that wouldn't normally have come to a studio. Like right now, people are just fucking home. So last night I sent out the first wave of invitations to publicists, and surprisingly, unlike last time, a lot of them are getting back to me right away. That was never the case before. It was called a Hollywood no, where you sent the email and you just never heard it.
Yeah.
But they're all replying and saying either we're going to check and let you know, or yes, we'll do it, or no, they won't. But it's I'm just going to keep sending them out, and we're going to try to do a lot more interview shows now.
Are you enjoying doing it on the Zoom now? Like, I know that doing it live is always better. It's better energy in the room. But I know you're getting used to it. Do you enjoy doing the Zoom, or you hate it?
I'm getting used to it now. But one thing I changed the dynamic that we actually do the show live, so it's out there live. As you guys know, when you were on, you had people commenting from YouTube, people commenting from. I think your episode had like 3,000 or something like that. I have to look and see.
I went on the YouTube and I saw it was a good amount. It was nice. I
It was
wish
like-
he would have sounded a little better, but
Yeah, I saw as I couldn't see anything, and you guys are yelling at me. These comments are coming up like this guy's an idiot. I was like, oh, this is fun. This is live fun.
Yeah, exactly. So we just do. You can go to the whole podcast, or follow the whole podcast, or me, Rob Sprance, on Twitter, and usually I'll say early in the week when the show's going to be live, because we can't do it at the same time every time. Especially because when you're getting a guest on, especially somebody relatively big, you do it when they want. So I don't know if the interviews will be live.
We choose what time we go on, Rob.
Right, exactly. That's a good decision that you made, because apparently you didn't even choose the time because you weren't ready. So so you chose the wrong time for yourself.
Everything is subject to change in our show.
Yeah, I tell you, the one thing though that I really can't stand is, one of my biggest pet peeves has always been audio quality, and that's the one thing that drives me fucking crazy, because I can't control the sound of everybody, especially over these things. We don't use Zoom; we use another service because it allows us to go live and put graphics up and stuff.
I agree.
That's the one thing that
bothersome.
Yeah, that's the one thing that really bothers me, is I've always been a stickler for audio. So I literally have my mixing board and my DAW hooked up so that I'm putting it through Studio One and recording it, and then so the audio version of the podcast sounds way better than the video version. But it's someday I'll be able to get that ironed out. But right now, that's the difference. So
yeah, I mean, there's I mean, I don't know the program that you use, but there's only so much you can do with Zoom. Like even having a microphone, you're kind of handicapped by their service and everyone's internet too. So like if we have someone on who's got crappy internet, there's going to be more of a latency for them. And then like their face doesn't match up with what they're saying. And it's really annoying.
My cat is throwing up right behind me right now. You can see it in your frame.
I saw a cat walk in before.
Is that part Siamese, that cat?
No, he's a Berman. I would pick him up and show him to you, but I'm tethered to the mic, and he's currently throwing up.
Gotcha.
I'll block my protector.
Well, Chris, one of the best compliments that Rob ever gave us is the first time I asked him to listen to our show, when I first told him that I do a podcast. I had no idea what he's going to think. You know, we're three idiots. I'm like, oh, he's not going to like it. And he said, if the audio sucks, I'm not even going to listen. And he said the first thing he told me was that the audio was good. And I was like, that's the best comment we had.
That's my favorite compliment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's Chris, because I know if it was just up to you two guys, it would sound like you're doing it in a dumpster.
Oh, yeah. It would sound like we were screaming down the block at you.
But yeah, it was good. And you know what? I feel like, when people used to find out that I was with Riotcast, they were like, hey, can you check out my show? I used to hate that, man, because I hate when the show sucks. Because it puts me in a weird position that I don't know, how to say it without saying it.
Yeah.
Because they're always like, no, be brutally honest. But nobody wants to hear brutally honest. Nobody does, even though they tell you they do. So, with Chic, I was like, I really hope that this is not terrible. And I remember I listened to the whole episode. I was painting this room right here while I listened to the whole thing, enough that I went to another one. And that's good because, being part of Riotcast, I never listened to any podcast submissions that people would send me. If I didn't know what it was, I wouldn't even listen because I don't want to hear it. So
I'm sure you probably got a ton of people trying to send in for Riotcast too.
About between 30 and 50 a week, I would get.
I used to love when you used to show me some of the emails. They were funny to read.
It's like, and everyone's the same. We're a bunch of guys that like to shoot the shit and drink beer in our basement. I'm like, okay.
I know. That's
cool.
It's like so many of those. And then there's like, we get one with like 4 paragraphs about the show, but no link to the show to listen. Like, it's like use your fucking brain. Like I tell anybody who wants to submit to a podcast network, just make it 2 sentences and give them the fucking link because they don't care about what you're writing. They want to hear it. Not me. Don't send me anything. I don't want to hear shit. But like for other people who might want to, or other networks you may want to send it to.
Yeah.
But you guys, you look like you were going to say something, B.
No, I mean, I was just saying, I produce some comedy shows now. So we were doing one in Astoria and a couple out here on Long Island, and people just hear about it. And so I get a lot of people just sending me comedy stuff, and it's the same thing. Half of it, it's like, I don't get a video, and like, at least give me a video so I know who you are. And the other thing is, if I don't know you, this is on a comedy show, if you're not one of my friends, there's no chance I'm going to put you on a show if you're not good,
Well, that
seems a little off, though.
That's you're really setting yourself up for some broad horizons there, B.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like,
I was just gonna say,
sky's the limit. All right, this week Jim's back.
If they're not, if they're not good though.
There you go. That's the one.
Yeah.
But if somebody's really good, of course. But if you're not good, and I'm like, I could put on my friend who is equally not as good, I'm gonna put on my friend.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I get that.
They're all, but they're one thing with dealing with comics, man. I love them, but they're all fucking mental patients, man.
They really are.
I know.
Yeah.
I've gotten to learn that a little bit just through B and your dealings with some of them. I'm like, wow, they are all nuts.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But one thing I do want to do, and I know I haven't done it in a while, and I said I was going to stop, but I've watched some actually very good movies as of recently.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. We
had a guy on last week. We had Sean Donnelly, who has a movie podcast, and he stopped doing it for Sean Donnelly, that episode.
Well, I did talk about a couple. We had plenty of good talks about cinema.
Can we just acknowledge that he just said, I stopped doing it for a while, and he literally stopped for one episode?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I stopped doing it for a while.
I'm back. Well, I watched 2 excellent movies, and they're new. They're not even like great, crazy picks. They're 2 of the newest movies that came out, but I watched them both and thought they were both excellent.
Okay.
One of them was Spike Lee's The Five Bloods. It was really good. Very long, but very good.
He's awesome. Every movie he does is fucking good.
Yeah, Spike Lee, there's maybe been 1 or 2 movies that I didn't love of his, but most of his stuff is very good. And Pete Davidson, who I fucking hate. I really don't like him. I don't think he's a great comic, but his acting, his last 2 movies were excellent. And
I couldn't agree more. I thought The King of Staten Island was fantastic.
It's a great
and
cast.
Big Time Adolescence was great too.
Yeah, but the new one, King of Staten Island, was well written, well acted, and it was a superb cast.
That's an episode movie, right?
Great. Bill Burr is a very good actor.
Bill Burr's a great actor.
I mean, he was great in fucking Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
he was.
True. But you see him like in a big role like this, he was very good. I agree with you, Chick. I watched that movie on Friday, and I thought it was fantastic.
That's what I was saying. They were both 2 new movies. I watched them both, and I absolutely loved them. And another big person, Sprance, is also a big Tarantino fan.
Oh, yeah.
And they always tell them about my Tarantino movies, and they were on the fence about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I loved it.
I thought it was excellent.
I liked it. No, I liked it. I don't know. I don't remember what my take was, actually.
I still haven't seen it.
You still haven't seen it, Chris?
No, it's too long. I can't.
But you sit through these 2 guys every week. You can't sit through a Tarantino movie?
Yeah, I like them. I don't know.
Oh, Tarantino's the man. But those 2 movies I just said, I highly recommend everybody gets out and watches them. Especially the Spike Lee one with everything that's going on, the world burning. It's a very current and good.
What
movie.
is that about? I saw the thing. I didn't check it out.
In a nutshell, it's about a handful of Vietnam vets who returned to Vietnam to get something that they buried, and they go back and forth. Yeah, they go back and forth with showing when they actually, of Vietnam and them today. Very well done.
Speaking of that, did you guys see the Chappelle special?
I did, yes.
Yeah,
excellent.
Great.
I was just gonna say that it wasn't even a stand-up special. It's just Chappelle being the man.
It was powerful, man.
He's the only comic on earth who could do that, I think.
I really think that solidifies. I was actually just talking to my parents about this. I think that solidifies him as like the greatest of all time.
The greatest of all
I
time.
think that did. I thought I could have said that a little while ago, but that definitely.
No,
helps.
it's of course.
But now it's not even an argument. Like it's.
But for him, it's like a social issue. I just thought it was fantastic.
In the middle of the pandemic, no alcohol in the crowd. Like I don't know. I thought it was nuts.
The interesting part of that is he did over 3 hours of comedy before that and only released that.
And released.
Did he really?
No,
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Good for those people at least getting a show.
I think there were other there was a bunch of comics that were on it too, I believe, on that one. But he just did his. It was just very. Wow. I loved the way it was shot with like the people walking in with the masks. It was just.
I think that's going to be a special separately. I think that will be because if you notice, that one was on YouTube. It wasn't on Netflix.
Right. Yeah, it was well, they said Netflix released it on YouTube for free. Right. It was weird. That didn't even make sense.
Yeah, they released it for free as like a. I don't know, like tribute to society or something like that. But
so is he going to have like the actual comedy special come out and then have that as a part B?
I don't know, maybe.
But just as like as an editing note, they filmed that on June 6th, and it came out a couple days ago. That's like the quickest turnaround in editing history.
Oh,
yeah.
Side note.
Well, he said something about that. He said that this is probably the most unrefined special or anything that I'll ever release. I think he wanted it raw like that.
He was talking about stuff in the last couple of weeks.
It was almost like hearing a podcast. Like it was so current. Like
just not as bad. Like it's way better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Way better.
It's like a podcast, but with talented person doing it.
Right, yeah. Better audio quality.
Right.
But you know what it is? He's just such a level-headed individual when he speaks on it that he doesn't come off, severe one-sided.
No,
even though, he's where he stands, but he's not.
He sees the full picture, though.
Yeah, he's just very level-headed and well-spoken when he speaks on it.
Yeah, he's right in what he said though, because he said that he said at one point that the reason why he's always talked about social injustice, and he called out that Don Lemon part.
Yes.
And he said, I've been talking about it for years, and it's true. He has. He told that whole bit about some dude threw a fucking banana on stage when he was doing his stand.
Yeah.
It's not like he hasn't. It's not like he hasn't mentioned that. And Don Lemon's since gone back on it and said that Chappelle was right, that he shouldn't have singled him out. But you could tell it pissed Chappelle off because he's been talking about that shit his whole life.
I know, and he goes, I was waiting for him to say my fucking name.
Yeah, I know.
He said he was watching it.
Yep.
Well, those were my 3 picks, and I want to thank you again, Rob, for taking the time to come on. Our apologies on the late invite.
My pleasure.
Better late than never. And to everybody, if you made it this far, check out the whole podcast. Anything else you want to plug, Rob, that you do have coming out or coming up, or
you might want to not say if you made it this far to the listeners. Like if you want to hope that they're still.
No, it's just our thing.
That's our tagline.
Oh, okay, all right.
At the end of every episode.
That started early in the beginning when we were like, I don't think anybody's listening to this.
Okay, understood. Just go to thewholepodcast.com. Right now, it just takes you to our YouTube page. There's plenty of stuff there for you. Enjoy, just subscribe, and that's it.
Nice.
All right.
Nice.
You guys have anything? B, you have anything
I'm gonna
coming
plug
up?
something real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
If you want to catch an encore screening of my movie, it's going to be out all weekend. You can go to the link in my Instagram bio for it. It's complicated.
We'll share it on our
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you can watch it all weekend.
You did a movie, dude?
More big time shows coming up, Zoom shows.
I am doing the first open mic on Long Island coming back this Wednesday at a patio at a bar. And I will talk about I talked to Chic already. I don't want to get into on this episode, but on Saturday night I did a Zoom show. There was 90 people on there, more than I expected. Okay,
90 people.
90 people. I bombed about as bad as I could have ever bombed. It was embarrassing. I blanked out. I was before I was about to go up. I was texting my friends, asking them if they know the ending of some of my jokes. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. And we'll get into that soon.
And please, if anyone recorded that, send it.
Chris,
There's a
the
recording.
conversation was amazing. He called me to tell me this, and I was dying. Like, yes, I was so happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that comics are doing these at all. Like, if I was a comic, I'd be like, I'll just wait, man.
I'll give you a quick thing. The guy running it is my boss. And we kind of talked about it. I was like, all right, I'll do it. And he wanted me to co-host it with him. And he actually got a group of really good comics on there.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else did okay, but me.
Yeah.
So what is everybody else? So everybody else is muted except the person doing the stand-up?
No. So there was a lot of people on there. So we muted most people, but we kept a few people on there. So you did hear some laughs. And then every once in a while,
except for your set, though.
Not for me, no. and then once in a while, you'd see one of these pop up, like the little hand emoji clap.
Oh boy.
Or a thumbs up. So it was a lot of that stuff. But for me, it was none of that. I got on, got off, and I had to introduce all the but. Yeah, I don't know. We'll get into it another time. Very embarrassing. And
that's great.
I had a really embarrassing weekend, and I can't wait to talk with you guys. And also, I just want to go back. Rob, Chris, the movie, what's the name of the movie, Chris?
Oh, Open Your Eyes.
Open Your Eyes. Yeah, so Chris was in a documentary that he's been filming for the last, 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
3 years.
It's pretty cool. So check it out. Chris was I thought Chris was the best part of it. Maybe I'm biased, but also I'm not very smart, so I just like to see my friend on it. But yeah,
you should watch it. You should watch it with sound next time too. I bet you it's even better.
Oh yeah. Oh, God.
I will check it out. Where is it, Chris? One more time.
So we're doing a screening with a company called Biohack the World this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. You know, obviously with COVID, we were going to do in-person screenings, but you can't. So,
Yeah. So
we're hoping
you're
to
not
have it
the-
on streaming soon.
You're not the soy bomb guy that jumped on stage with soy bomb on his chest, were you?
No, he looks like him though.
Yeah,
What
close.
reminds me? Really, it looks like the soy bomb guy.
Close.
I would. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out too, man. I want to check it out.
Awesome. Thanks.
Like I know this guy because you definitely seem like the smartest one by a mile. So you know.
Well, you should listen to him spell.
Yeah.
We did a spelling episode. I don't know
We did
how
a
smart he
spelling
is.
bee, and Chris was the worst out of all of us.
Yes, but B just proved that he was still dumber because he said you should listen to him spell. So you know, so there's that.
All right. I'm not. You're right. You're right. I have nothing. I have nothing to say.
Bow out.
It's gonna be another year.
I'll
It's
bow
gonna be
out.
another year. I know it's another year before I'm invited back on this. That's for sure.
No. We want you back.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Review us. Comment. We appreciate it. Rob, thanks again for coming on.
My pleasure,
To
guys.
the whole podcast. And thank you guys. We're out.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys. Yeah, listen to the whole.